everybody, and welcome to this special live show tonight on Geeksvana, which is going to bring you some answers that the UK drone hobby and industry have been waiting for some time. There's going to be lots and lots of new and exciting confirmations and news tonight. We're actually going to get some real answers, so I'm very, very excited for that one. Today, the CAA have issued a statement, which they've sent to Geeksvana, based on instructions from the DFT, the Department for Transport, regarding the proposed extension to the UK transitional and legacy periods, as well as bringing clarity on the use of EU C-class drones in the UK airspace. So we really do have some answers tonight, answers on the transitional period and on those C-label EU drones. So this is an exciting one. We will today bring you the full details, as well as explain what it means for you and your drone. As regular viewers will know, this has been a bit of a focus this week, hasn't it? All three videos have actually been on whether or not you can use the C-label drones here in the UK, and in actual fact has ended up with a bit of an extra news in terms of the transition period. So many people have wondered if a loophole meant you could fly this drone in the UK with the additional benefits that C1 brings you. Essentially, really what it does is it turns a drone that is in the UK, currently requires an A2 CFC to fly in congested areas and a 50-meter separation distance, into one which can be flown with effectively zero separation, with nothing more than registration and reading the manual. Now, live viewers, please do tag at Geeksvana if you've got comments on anything that I'm talking about, etc. And we will come on to a Q&A part just after the main news part here. I want to try and get through this so anyone that's watching the replay as well can get this news. I don't want to mess around too much because I know everyone is certainly waiting for this. So we'll get straight into it. No sort of, okay, first of all, let's talk about the history of drones. We are going to get straight into things tonight. So first up, let's take a look at the statement in terms of the transitional and legacy periods. And this is hot off the press from the CAA and DFT. And here it is. So following the UK Civil Aviation Authority's consultation on whether to extend the legacy and transitional provisions for drones operating in the open category, and after a formal decision from the Department for Transport, it has been decided that the transition and legacy provisions will now be extended to the 1st of January 2026. This time will allow for the CAA and DFT to conduct a review of regulations for unmanned aircraft, including the open category, to make sure it is properly regulated in a way that is fit for purpose for the UK prior to 2026. So we are talking about an extension to the transitional and legacy periods up until the beginning of 2026, so the end of 2025, effectively. So what does this actually mean for you and your drone? Well, it means that essentially, as we stand, nothing will change. C-label drones I'm coming to in a moment, at the end of this year, and we'll all be able to continue with the existing legacy drones exactly as we're flying now. If you've got your A2 CFCs and so whatever drone you're flying right now, in terms of a legacy drone, will carry on regardless beyond the end of this year. So no changes to your sub 250 gram drones, no changes to anything really there. Now, this is all, of course, subject to a more permanent system being put into place, and the CAA in their public consultation did warn us that they would like to have a review of the C-label system, but also the open category. And as you can see in that statement, they do talk about a review of regulations for unmanned aircraft, including the open category, to make sure it's properly regulated. And this is really, as I was discussing with Graham in our live show the other night, this is really in terms of looking at whether or not the EU adopted regulations have any other wiggle room. Is the C-label system the right label system for the UK, that type of thing, etc., etc. Now, of course, we've got a period there, haven't we, between now and 2026. What happens with these C-label drones over from the EU in terms of whether or not we're going to be able to actually use them? Well, we do have a continuation of the statement which talks about this. So let's move on to that now. The DFT will also be changing UK regulations so that European Union class marks on drones will not be recognised in the UK after the 1st of January 2023. Drones with the EU class marks will still be able to be flown in the UK after that date in the open and specific categories, but may not make use of class mark provisions in the A1, A2 and A3 subcategory. And just the formal bit at the end there, the DFT will formally publish these changes to the UK regulations EU 2019-947 and EU UK regulation EU 2019-945 in December, ahead of them coming into effect before January 2023. So, and I will bring both of these up again in a second and go through them again, so that we have that impact, as it were. So this means that although via the loophole we can currently use the EU C-label drones until the end of this year, the DFT will be making changes essentially to slam that door shut. Now, the reasoning here, in my opinion, is not to annoy us, is not to frustrate the hobby, but one which actually came up again in my previous live show with Graham Degg. I'm not sure if he's in the chat tonight or if he's actually watching. I did speak to him just before the show. It's almost impossible for us in the UK to accept what is now a separate state's essentially legislation or approvals within UK law. It just wouldn't be practical or workable. So I can see why this is happening. So sadly, whilst we watch our EU EASA friends fly their C1 rated drones here in the UK, we'll have to fly them as legacy drones. So essentially, ignore the fact the drone has a C label on it and work under the existing rules. So sub 250 up to 500 grams if you've got an A2 CFC, and then of course the A2 CFC up to 2 kilograms with the 50-meter separation, etc. So those rules are still very much what's going to be happening. So something like the Mavic 3 Classic would need an A2 CFC, all to be flown under something like the Article 16, if that's the kind of if that's actually what you're flying under, etc. So again, those are the two parts of the statement which have actually come out today. This is so hot off the press, I could hardly touch the email, frankly. So again, the first part here talking about legacy and transition, basically the CAA confirming that the formal decision from the DFT, which of course then the CAA have to put into action, is that it's been decided the transition and legacy provisions will now be extended to the 1st of January 2026. So without C labels being ready here in the UK, that's good news from the point of view that we can still continue using our existing legacy drones as we do today. There is, of course, a frustration to this second part here, the fact that we're not going to be able to use the C-rated drones in terms of the A1, A2 and A3 subcategory benefits. So you can still fly the Mavic 3 Classic after January the 1st, 2023, but you're not going to be able to use it with zero separation, etc. in the A1 airspace. Essentially, you will fall back to it being an A2 legacy drone and need an A2 CFC, and then back comes the 50-meter separation, the same as if you had an older drone weighing the same. The C label will get you no benefit after that. From right now, today, up until the end of December, so before the 1st of January, you will actually be able to fly that C1 labeled Mavic 3 Classic in the A1 airspace. So it's, as I say, and as I said in my previous videos, I felt like it would be irresponsible to tell people that it's legal to fly it at the moment, because I felt like it was going to get shut pretty quickly. I mean, you know, we are talking about right now with the 11th of November, so we are talking about a few short weeks before that door is slammed shut. So anybody that goes out to purchase one of these could obviously experience some difficulties, frankly. So let's have a quick hop across to the chat and see what people have got to say. I will come back again and work through some of those as well. It was great, by the way, in the pre-chat to see you all giving everybody advice on return to home and that type of thing. Thank you guys for helping each other out. Devon above, I hope your train journey is going well. I hope you managed to get a seat and you're not surfing on the roof anymore. And let's have a look at some of the things here. Legwork is going to become a member again. Thank you, Legwork. If you want to become a member, there is a link in the description. And yes, Andy, did I get the pose right? I know from the intro into the, I haven't, you know, obviously I'll have a look back later. I am starting to practice that because it is my OCD, frankly. And Sandy Cairns is saying, I thought we'd put this on indefinite postponement, so a bit confused tonight. Yeah, Sandy, basically the CAA had the public consultation. From that public consultation, it was overwhelming that the drone stakeholders in the UK, so industry, hobby, etc., wanted to see a long extension period. And the CAA put recommendations to the DFT. It's then obviously down to the DFT as government to come back and give some direction as far as how legislation is going to change. Because of course the law part of it is done at government, of course, and then those instructions are passed on to the regulator, the Civil Aviation Authority, the CAA, and they then make policy. They then make the rules around the regulations around those instructions, essentially. So what's happened here is the DFT, Department of Transport, have come back and said, rather than calling it indefinite, we'd like to have it as the 1st of January 2016. So it's a relatively, it sounds like quite far away, but to me that's actually a relatively short amount of time. If you think how long things can take to get resolved, the fact that we're here now and we didn't have any assessment bodies in place and all that type of thing, and the EU were obviously slightly ahead of us in those terms, then yeah, it is something which is hopefully now going to bring a little bit more clarity, so you can continue flying as is until the 1st of January 2026, but we would not be able to use the C labeled, C rated classed drones. And Dave Hammer saying that I do hope it's good news. Received the Mavic 3 Classic yesterday with the mark. I like that. Yeah, Dave, it is mixed news, isn't it? The fact that you've got a few weeks to fly it with the benefits of the C1, but after that, sadly, it will revert back. Have a look else here, what anybody else has tagged. Do tag us in the chat if you want something specifically answered. Keith's phone, not good for class marking. Still no clarity on that one. Actually bad news, as we will not really have any drones in the CAA class markings, etc. Yeah, we're not going to, and bear in mind as well that part of the proposal, part of the CAA's remit as such, is to, rather than even, as they were talking about, an investigation into the open category and a review of the C labels, the statement does talk about a review of unmanned regulations in the UK, including the open category. So it looks like we're going to see a review. We may never see C-class drones come into the UK, but we could end up with an even simpler system. We could end up with a better system. It's actually going to be vital, absolutely vital, in the next couple of years that my viewers, the hobby and the industry, the commercial flyers more widely, that we do interact with the CAA and government consultations, mainly the CAA ones, which will talk about what they're thinking, what they're proposing, etc. And we'll also want to hear from us in terms of what we need as a hobby and as a commercial sector as well. So it's going to be vital, so important for us to engage with all of that, frankly. IUP, who is actually Graham Degg, hi. I'll be here to help pick up the pieces for professional users who need permissions to fly close and need a better sensor. Yes, I will put a link in the description to this live show actually for Graham's bits, but Graham's links. But as per our previous live show, he is someone that can help you and can help advise on how to get special permissions. Should you be a company that actually this will hinder you, January going on. Legwork at Geeksvana, does this mean that C ratings can still be used under the specific category? Yeah, and because of course in the specific category, under the GVC operational authority and operational safety cases, the C labels don't really mean too much. That the C label system is for the open category, essentially for the A1, A2, A3 airspaces. The certified, certified, don't even mention that word. The specific category, there are no changes, essentially. Keith's phone, we're such a small market, not sure manufacturers will modify just for the UK. It's not viable, disappointing. Yeah, I honestly, I don't think we're going to see, Keith, personally a completely different system. I don't think we're suddenly going to see a C1 UK label or a UK C1 label or however you might want to. So it's a lot to fit on the arm for a start, and it will be interesting as to what happens. I suspect it might go to a very simple weight system or something, or it could be an adoption of these. They could review it and say, actually, we are going to adopt. Or they could even, as we were talking about the live stream the other night, they could even opt to have something like a list of approved drones, that type of thing. So, yeah, And Colonel Radio saying, I mean, you have to learn those C-class rules to get a flyer ID. Yeah, I have. One of the things that I think we're going to need to see, which is one of the questions which I will be putting to the CAA when they come on to Geeksvana later this month on a live Q&A, is whether or not we're going to see a change to the drone code in terms of having the C label bits and pieces removed for now, because it is a good couple of years, and also the flyer ID, not the questions on that not being so heavily dependent on C-class questions, basically, because we're learning things that potentially we'll never use. SJM drones, Amelia, good to see you. The Mavic 6 will be out by then. Let's hope it's super light. Indeed. Let's hope for a sub 250 Mavic 6, shall we? Artas Bisofs says, I just bought an Air 2S. This C labeling is discrimination. Greetings from Latvia. Hi, sir. Good to see you. Odrono, I'm not surprised. It was always going to be an extension. I fly under Article 16 and I'm okay with that. Excellent. That hopefully will not change. Legwork Geeksvana thinks CAA DFT will be going down the BSI route when it comes to new regs. Yeah, interesting point. HPC Cobby, hi, good to see you. It's interesting to note that Vernon and Microdrone will have been in development through several regulatory regimes in our space. I always like to get Microdrone 4 and remind everybody of the issues that the Microdrone 4 backers are having on every stream that I possibly can. So thank you, Cobby, for that. IARP is saying, so when, Graham, so when government ministers tell us that we're world beating, you have to ask yourself in what. But it's an interesting one, isn't it, Graham? And I know we have a show coming up with actually with an RAE who's going to be joining us to talk about drone training, which we're just in the planning stages of. And I think that's going to be one of the things that we have to look at in terms of and discuss that particular evening as well, if we're brave enough, in terms of how this holds us back in the UK, how this could benefit us in the UK, because I think there'll be ebbs and flows there, basically. And David's saying, so what changes after that date? My Mavic 3 Classic suddenly fall out of the sky. Yeah, essentially, what's happened here, as I was saying in my video on earlier this week and in the live show, but mainly my recorded video, you have two systems which are mirrored. And so we wouldn't normally have this problem, because if the UK had come up with C labels all by themselves and we were going to have C labeled drones, then of course, when the system stopped happening and the consultation happened and the extension was recommended and the review of C labels came up, then DJI, other drone manufacturers, wouldn't even think of releasing a C-class drone. The issue we have here is that, of course, the EU have carried on with that system, and therefore DJI have quite, to some unexpectedly, fairly early on, managed to get a C1 rating and produced a drone with that label on it. So it's a very unique situation. And because we've got the mirrored regulations, essentially the regulations currently state that you can fly the EU class marked drones, but then once the UK system catches back up, once there's an assessment body and oversight, etc., it would then click across to say actually it needs to be a UK one. So essentially there's a bit of legislation that would have changed. There's a bit of a legislation change. There's a bit of an update that would have happened once we had C labels fully available in terms of UK assessed ones, UK approved ones, which hasn't happened, which has really left this technicality, this loophole open. So the next few weeks of people that are flying the Mavic 3 Classic under the C1, it was never intended, certainly, for the EU class mark drones to be flown here in the UK, because the system was essentially the same. So if it had the approval there, it would have got the approval here as well. So then we wouldn't have seen any air between the two, frankly. Lee, so after January 2023, the C1 drone will be classed as legacy until the new CAA bring out the new regs. Could this be 1 month, 6 months, 1 year? This seems like the CAA are shafting people flying a C1 drone. And that I refer to my last answer, and I completely understand why people feel that way. It does feel like we're having something taken away that we've been building towards. You know, we've had the drone code. I had a viewer contact me earlier this week who said he went onto the CAA official drone code, took his operator ID, passed his flyer ID, read the drone code several times, felt like he knew it, found a drone marked as C1, purchased it and feels like he should now be able to crack on. And that is part of the issue, is that what the public are told on the official sites, etc., needs updating. We need to update it so that it isn't causing confusion, frankly. And just to answer that last part, Lee, or your first part, Lee, I don't think you'll see much of a change. I think we'll probably get to know what's happening before 1st of January 2026, but I would expect that's when we'll actually see whatever happens to the C markings, the C class drones. Mudd's Adventures. So owning a Mini 3, if buying a larger drone, will still require an A2 CFC. Yes. So essentially sub 250 grams, you can fly over people and zero separation, just not fly over crowds, and obviously all the other rest of the drone code and safe flight. If you have an A2 CFC, you can fly up to 500 grams. So something like the Avata in that same A1 airspace, but you cannot have intentional flights over people. And then anything above that, you need the A2 CFC, and then you start falling into the 50-meter separation, unless you have GVCs and OSCs, etc. above that. And my chat just jumped down, so bear with me while I get back to where the questions are. M. Vaughan, any news about the bolt-on courses that were meant to be coming out for GVC pilots, the ones that were going to reduce separation, etc., without the need for OSC? And of course, we have EV loss and all of that type of thing on those bolt-ons as well. No firm news. However, at DroneX this year, Mark Worry from the CAA, German Aviation and Unmanned RPAS team, he did talk about the fact that he did talk about some changes going over to SORA and that type of thing, etc. So I think we're going to see some movement on that, and I think there is going to be some form of announcements on that, on an ongoing basis. But that is definitely, as far as I'm aware, and this hasn't actually come anywhere from the CAA, so from other parties, but I believe that to be a bit of a priority right now. Yeah, and a Kernel Radio is echoing exactly what I've said there, that will the CAA what will they do to update their website if the rules and the C classes are relevant? Because it is, again, the one thing that I asked for in the live stream the other night is that we get clear and concise and understandable information regarding both transition and the C mark drones. I feel that we have that. I feel that we do have that. Whether we like it or not, we do have that clear information, which is great. But now we need to see the reflection in terms of a standard consumer. They're not going to be a drone geek like myself or Graham or someone like that that's going to know these rules backwards. A consumer is going to go onto the CAA website. They're going to follow the instructions. They're going to pass the tests and then buy a drone and crack on. And whilst those things exist on that website, etc., whilst those things exist as the formal advice, then of course it's going to cause confusion, especially when drones are arriving with C labels on them. Yeah, Keith is saying we'll kill the market until they sort things and manufacturers join the party. I think others might agree with you there. Big Bear, Mark, thank you very much for the $5 super chat. I hope you're well, sir. Thank you very much. Just says all the best, Sean. Thank you. And Andy Cortez reminding everybody that you can join us on our Discord server. Droning Western Australia, and thank you. It's a good opportunity for me to thank our international audience and all of the drone community that's around Geeksvana, frankly, the thousands of you that now subscribe to the channel. It's always great to see the Australian, the US side of things get involved in the UK rule videos and live streams, etc., and vice versa. Whenever we have stuff that's on regarding the FAA, we get a lot of worldwide interest in it as well, which is fantastic because we are one worldwide drone community, and it's great to be speaking to you all. And he's saying, didn't the UK and EU initially agree these labels before Brexit? So even though these EU regs are now different sovereign state, they were still a shared development, so could be effective. Yeah, and certainly if 100%, you're correct. Certainly, if the UK had put the assessment bodies in place, had put the oversight bodies in place, etc., if all of that work had happened when it was supposed to, then I think that we would still be in that mirrored system and we'd all be using the C1. We wouldn't even be thinking about it. The C1 Mavic 3 Classic would be used, and we wouldn't even be thinking we'd be happy that 2023 was coming along, apart from the fact that we'd lose our legacy drones. So some would be happy, some wouldn't. We'd be looking forward to other drones coming out with the C1 marking, etc. So, but this is a situation where it's now being reassessed to see whether or not, because obviously there was Brexit coming out of the asset, everything else like that. I think it's almost brave from the point of view that they're looking to review these things. But what I don't want to see, because we could end up with a much better system for the UK, but what I don't want to see is the consumer and the industry side of things hurt in the meantime. I hope that things can happen to stop that. And as I was saying, as I was saying to Legwork, that the C ratings are irrelevant to the specific category. However, there may be an argument made via the OSC process. So iupaerialsolutions.co.uk if you're interested in that one. Yes, Chris Hearn, do not apologise asking. I hope you're well, sir. No changes to the GVC holders, absolutely. Well, to be fair, there's no changes pretty much to anybody, apart from anybody who's bought the Mavic 3 Classic in the hopes that it would be a usable C1 drone. That will end in just a few short weeks, basically. Clear Air Flying, aerial photography. Hi, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. This makes no sense from a safety point of view. If a drone has passed the C1 certification, then it's clearly shown that it can do the things the CAA wanted. Another Brexit benefit. Yeah, it's an interesting one. It is this thing of, because we don't have the assessment and oversight bodies in place here in the UK, so we would have to essentially be following and allowing another a foreign state, as in and a foreign regulator, as in EASA, to form effectively part of the UK regulation. Because if we accepted the use of the EU drones, then if they made a change to those C1 drones, etc., which could happen, of course, if they, if something changed there, etc., that would change automatically here in the UK, or we'd have to make another change. So really the only clean way of doing it from a legislation point of view, it doesn't help us on the ground, it doesn't help us in the real world. I completely understand that, I completely agree, but it's impossible to follow that, basically. And Tazzy, hi Tazzy, one of our members, a £2 super chat. Thanks to the idiot's guide to this. No, it's not an idiot's guide to it at all. It is hopefully something that we can get across in a fairly concise way. But I appreciate it, Tazzy. Thank you very much. Tazzy is also one of my one of the commenters that I've always enjoyed interacting with on the channel. He's now a member of our Discord channel, which I know Andy Cortez has put a link in the description to that as well, and comes in there and chats with us. But he's always someone that is willing to have the other side of the fence chat with me, which I really enjoy, frankly. Keeps me on my toes as well. And Andy Cortez, who's our senior moderator, is saying that's why I've resisted going any bigger than 250 grams for the last 3 years at Leap. And yeah, I think a lot of people are very focused on that, because even with the when the C-class drone system was coming in 2023, the CAA had said that anything sub 250, which isn't C marked here in the UK, would be able to be flown in the same airspace indefinitely. So certainly sub 250, you're pretty safe in terms of, you're pretty isolated in terms of too many rule changes. Canal Radio, the CAA have to change their rules regarding C-class, as a new drone operator looking on the CAA website could buy a drone from Argos and believe they are flying legally. Yeah, absolutely. And in actual fact, we have another live stream on Monday. I don't like bringing bad news to the hobby, especially too much, but there are certain things happening out there at the moment which I feel that we really do need to discuss, and we really do need to fight against, and we really do need to get our teeth into. Monday's live stream is a big one. Monday's live stream is a chunky topic, which is one that I'm going to need everybody to get involved with and everybody's help with, frankly, because it is extremely concerning for the UK hobby in particular, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the CAA or DFT, frankly, which is actually part of my reason. Stevie Boy FPV, hi, good to see you. So this is typical. This is so typical of the UK. They finally bring out a C1 drone, and we can't take advantage of it. Be nice if we weren't following the EU on the MW output power as well. Then, and Cobby's saying no news yet on the ruling about the home-built drones. Thoughts on whether that's just jumped up out of my way. Thank you, everybody. Lots of great to see you all in here this afternoon, this evening. I really appreciate you for joining us. Thoughts on whether they'll release a specification for labels which could allow both industry and own builders to comply? Yeah, that's an interesting one. That's an interesting one, because with the C marking, C label system with the camera drones, pre-built drones, that has always been something which is a huge issue, obviously, for the self-build side of things, and it's something that I think could happen, but effectively the argument, this is not my argument copy at all, but the argument is that a DJI drone like one of these over here, so the Air 2S down here, the Mavic 3 at the bottom, those drones are built by a manufacturer. They go through the assessment period, the assessment process to have a C marking, to gain a C class marking, and every drone that comes out is going to be the same, essentially. So the regulator, the government, know that every one of those drones, if it's got that label on it, it's going to be compliant to those codes. In terms of the cost and in terms of the complications of a home builder getting a C label approval, would be astronomical in terms of an individual, of course, would take a long time, and of course people are constantly evolving their drones. But yeah, it's an interesting one, and it is definitely one that I think when we have the CAA on later this month on the channel, I think it will be a very, very important one. The FPV side of things is something I'm going to be raising on several key issues, so keep an eye out for that one, and hopefully we can get you some more opinion on that. But I can see it, and I can see how we could do it, but I also know the answers that we're probably going to get, unfortunately. Legwet saying some DFT powers are developed to the home nations, could potentially see different rules in England, Scotland and Wales. Yeah, not in this case, because the Civil Aviation Authority, it's essentially the DFT are making the changes, and then the CAA are responsible for the regulatory side of it. So the regulations that will come out of this will actually be centralised under the CAA, unless the Welsh launcher, the WAA, no, it wouldn't be a Welsh WCAA. Buds Adventures, thank you, Sean A. You're welcome, sir. And Cool Cat, great to see you as well. Great to see a lot of our regulars in the chat as well. Geeksvana, this is from RC Esky. Haven't seen you in the chat before. Thank you for joining us. So police, instead having guns, they will be equipped with small kitchen scale to weigh toy drones. And well, and that's part of it, that the class markings, etc., the manufacturer side of things, that should have made all of that a lot simpler. And Jason, hi, DMI Visual was asking you any expected FPV specific. And again, as I say, I think I know the answers to it, but we will be raising that in the live stream later this month. And Chris Hearn, thank you very much, one of our members, for the £5 super chat. I really appreciate it, sir. An awful lot. So just mopping up if there's any others, and then I'm very quickly going to go through the two slides again so that that's clear for anybody that's joined us during this segment of it. Lee is saying, at Geeksvana, I just spent £1,500 on a drone, which will be legacy after Jan 2023. Or do you think the CAA will assess during 2023 and allow the C1 drones to fly in A1? God, I'm so unhappy. Yeah, and I feel for you, Lee, 100%, because this is where the system has let us down as hobbyists, and as responsible hobbyists as well. And that's part of my frustration, is that the consumer will go to that website, as I've said already before, but this is my soapbox moment for this subject. The consumer will go to the website, they will follow every one of the rules, they'll register, so operator ID, flyer ID, they'll buy the right drone. Away from all of this, you shouldn't have to watch a YouTube channel, you shouldn't have to be have lots of Google News alerts, etc., in case something changes. And of course, yes, the Skywise website from the CAA will help you as well. But you shouldn't have to be almost expert in the drone rules to know what's coming and to know whether or not you should invest that £1,500 on a drone. That a website, which is, you're told by everybody, is the drone code and is what you should be following, is openly telling you that, and also teaching about C-class drones as well, etc., in the flyer ID. And I know I'm being slightly unfair there, because the CAA have been clear that those markings wouldn't be there. And as I say, we have the mirrored system, which has pushed it out of kilter, but we need this to change very soon, so that we don't have confusion for the next 2 years, so that every other live stream I do isn't re-explaining that we don't have C-class, etc., and that type of thing. Graham Niven, we could end up with a better system in the UK. A career in stand-up comedy awaits. Thank you, Graham. Thank you. I take a bow. Drone, the market will take a nosedive after today. So sad for UK buyers that want a larger drone. Chris Hearn, a pal of mine, was excited about getting a Mavic 3 Classic. He's well depressed now, back to his Mini 3 plan. I understand that. And Droning Western Australia again, in a perfect world, all countries would agree to one set of standard drone regs. Imagine traveling overseas, and which again is actually was the original idea behind the EASA side of things, that all of the 20 odd member states, which originally of course included the UK, would have the same rules across it. So your A2 CFC that you gain here in the UK with UAV Hub or whoever would be valid over in the EU, which of course it isn't now. Yeah, so it's a real shame. We were moving towards that, but it obviously things changed for wider reasons. Simon Elliott, I'm pleased the legacy period's been extended. There was a tiny bit of hope, that we might see C marking, but it's no surprise really, except I think 3 more years is more than I expected us to get. Yeah, and I suppose we could as well, Simon, but maybe we could see changes within that period, but I have a feeling they might keep the stability. I mean, if you think end of 2023, so we've got the 2023, 2020, so we've got a good chunk of 3 years to make the changes and bring them in. If you look at where we've come from 2020 to now the end of 2022, it starts to not feel quite as long. So I've got a feeling we might get plenty of good news and different news in between, but I don't think anything will change before then personally. I'd love to be proved wrong on that. Yes, a very good point, Mud's Adventures. On the flip side, with all the cuts UK is going through, who is going to police this? Yeah, absolutely, and effectively. And Andy, thank you for recommending the Geeksvana Discord channel there. The Discord channel is a plug. It's obviously a free thing to join. Lots of different channels on there to chat, from everything from the UK regs to finding places to fly in the UK and the US. We've got an international audience in there. We all help each other if there's problems, technical problems. We all give each other flying tips, etc. We share our videos and photos. There's even things like the rant away section and the social club where you can talk utter nonsense, which I enjoy talking utter nonsense on my Discord channel often. And some would say that's all I talk, but there we go. Kenneth Todd, can anyone answer this? I have a Mavic 2 and a Mavic Platinum Pro. I have operator ID and a flyer ID. Excellent. And going to join a club at the end of the month. Do I need to be concerned with all this new stuff? Nothing's changing for you, Kenneth, essentially. And in actual fact, if you were to get something like an A2 CFC, etc., there's more time to have benefits of flying those in congested areas. But actually, nothing is changing for you as such. Drone and Sundry, it's okay, you can start now. Okay, well, in fact, I should start now and bring this back up again and just give a very quick reminder of the 2 parts of the statement, which were released by the Civil Aviation today. So following the UK Civil Aviation Authority's consultation on whether to extend the legacy and transitional provisions for drones operating in the open category, and after a formal decision from the Department for Transport, it's been decided that the transition and legacy provisions will now be extended to the 1st of January 2026. This time will allow for the CAA and DFT to conduct a review of regulations for unmanned aircraft, including the open category, to make sure it is properly regulated in a way that is fit for purpose for the UK prior to 2026. And they then follow that up. The DFT will also be changing the UK regulations so that the European Union class marks on drones will not be recognised in the UK after the 1st of January 2023. Drones with EU class marks will still be able to be flown in the UK after that date in the open and specific categories, but may not make use of the class mark provisions in the A1, A2, and A3 subcategory. Just have a very small drink while you all read that. There we go. Yeah, it's been a long week and a lot of talking, frankly. So, yes, there we are. That is exactly where we stand, frankly. So I'll just check on other questions that we have here in the chat. Cool Cat, Sean, what's your take on the Avata washout crash problem? It seems like the DJI are being a bit bleep in-house in their response to pilots demanding explanations. It's an interesting one because I haven't had the issue, but then I don't fly manual, or when I am flying manually, Cool Cat, I'm not flying aggressively. So I don't have the issue to report. People that I respect and people that I listen to have opinions on both sides of that fence. And yeah, I mean, to me, I think the Avata is a cine whoop. So I think it's something which is not necessarily intended to be flown in the way that would happen to force the Avata yaw wash and issues to happen. So I'm not sure how I feel about it, if I'm completely honest. Just very quickly, thank you very much to Oak Meadows. I appreciate you becoming a member of the Geek Squad. Welcome. We're starting our members only live stream next week, which I'm looking forward to, which is again going to be a bit of a deeper dive, a bit more focused on the interests and the questions and things that members have, etc. as well, and a bit more of a chat, I suppose fairly similar to this one that we do after our live shows, where we give you the meat of the story and then we do the chattings, the live chat afterwards. But yes, thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. And hi, Michael, Flyzone Drones. Good to see you as well. So just check if there's any others. Web user, we Geeksvana have a feeling something else is at play here, given the industrial drone sector is being developed. I suspect leaving as is for now will help integration, but consumer will lose out. Yeah, and I had a live stream recently with Bruce Simpson of XJet, where we talked about AAM and the future flight side of things and whether or not it's a friend or foe. And I agree with you, web user. I think that we have to be very cautious of that and keep an eye on that. Sean, have the CAA DFT posted this on their site yet, or done any other formal release? If so, where can it be found? This was sent to me today. The intention was this will go onto the CAA website today, and will also go out to REs, etc., and everybody else there. Geeksvana, do you have a Patreon? No, I don't have a Patreon. I don't like asking people for money. We are in a fortunate position that the video production side of Geeksvana has here in our studios in Surrey has done fairly well. So in actual fact, and we're going to be announcing this more formally soon, but we're not taking any more sponsorship on the channel to keep us completely 100% independent from any kind of interactions, be that training companies, manufacturer companies, anything at all. Nothing against any of them at all, but it keeps us completely clear-headed in terms of the messages that we're putting out there and our investigative freedom as well, frankly. So, but no, we do have channel memberships, which you can join via the link in the description, and there's a few different tiers there. We're changing some of that coming quite soon, but they start at 99p or 99 cents a month. But thank you for asking, sir. And Trevor Fuss, who is one of our members, actually, thank you for the $2 or the $2 Australian super chat. I really appreciate it, Trevor. I hope you're well. Bring on 2026, indeed. Drone and Sundry, good to see you, sir. I hope you're very, very well. Let's hope they review Away Hard. This could be good news. Not recognizing C, if we go down the route of rolling out our own, might make manufacturers pull away from the UK market. It's not big enough. 100% agree with you there, Gary. And I wonder if a new system could be a really simple system. Perhaps I'm being naive in terms of weight and that type of thing, so that in actual fact it's not. Or it could be C1 approved in the EU plus on an approval list somewhere in the UK, which isn't as clean for consumers. I want to see it clean for consumers, especially as the C labeling is so aimed towards the consumer market, frankly. And Moira O'Brien, hi Moira, I'm searching for somewhere showing the drone regs by class, but cannot find anywhere. There is there's a few different things I can recommend there. We have a video on the channel which is the UK drone regs in 8 minutes, which has it in there. We also have one specifically for sub 250, so that will help you there. And it is also on the drone code. So if you Google CAA drone code, it does talk about the C classes on there at the moment. And Dave Hammer, thank you very much for the £3 super chat. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for the support tonight, guys. Going live in a very impromptu way, getting over 100 people in, etc. That's, I mean, it means a lot to me. This is why we do the work we do behind the scenes here at Geeksvana, and why I spend so many hours discussing with regulators and police and everybody else and manufacturers, etc., to bring you these stories. And it's great to have everybody come together. So thank you very much. Sean, is there somewhere we can go to find a formal statement? I don't know if it's on this, if it's been released yet. Let me check the main feed. Bear with me just one moment. This is good TV, isn't it? Let's watch a YouTuber search something on the internet. It has not been released on social media yet. So I think we're probably a little bit ahead of the curve, which I don't mind being, actually, Graham. Yeah, which is fantastic. At least we've been able to get this message out there before the weekend, which is great. And Cool Cat is saying, I'll take back everything I ever said about you. Please don't. Please. I need you guys to be 100% both sides of the fence for me. I never want viewers that are just completely in agreement. Some's nice, but not everybody. Future flight is a foe of commercial and private flight, from Drone and Sundry there. Lee, Sean, if I keep my classic after Jan 2023 and I have my A2 CFC, which cat can I fly in until 2026? The same as well, I was going to say the same as right now, but it's not. The same as before. So essentially, if you've got an A2 CFC, a Mavic 3 Classic in the UK after the 1st of January 2026, you will fly in the A2 airspace with a 50-meter horizontal, strictly horizontal separation distance between you and unprotected, uninvolved people, or uninvolved people, to make it simple. So yes, so it's certainly get out and fly as much as you can before that date, I would say. And thank you to my moderators for dealing with the like my hot photo here. Strange, but anyway, I've got a whole other thing about how those things work and how they end up making money, but frankly, there we go. And thank you, Andy, for posting the Heli Guy blog post, which explains it as well, for Moira. I really do appreciate that. Anil Jedi, to say that correctly, joining late, watching the start, but talk about CAS TFT kicking the can down the road and differing rules, and uncertainty with the rest of the world. It could result in manufacturers ignoring the UK. Yeah, and I think that they will be aware of that, and I think they will be. I have a feeling this is a prediction that in 2026, I have a feeling we might be happy with the hobby rules and the looking at things like the specific category and that type of thing. I have a feeling that we're moving in the right direction. And actually, as much as this feels like a shock, and as much as this feels like it isn't particularly helpful, I think in the long run it might help. Now, that's a drone geek talking that reads just about everything that possibly happens in the world drone side of things, let alone the UK. So I realise I'm a little bit deeper into the topic than many of you would want to be, but I have a feeling it's going to. Many people who are far more experienced than me, with arguably more knowledge, would disagree with me. So we'll have to wait and see. Johnny DRC, have you seen the module that goes in the drones that doesn't have RID? It's huge. Yes, the drone tag module, which is the only one that's currently approved on the FAA remote ID list, Johnny. That's a large one. It's actually intended for commercial use. And I know that Drone Tag, Lucas at Drone Tag, was saying that there's actually other versions coming out which will be smaller in the future. That was already a product which Drone Tag had, so they've now got it certified. It wasn't necessarily made specifically for the US market. And Andy Cortez saying goodbye to the adult chat spammer, bless them. Moira, and just saying thanks. I do follow Heli Guy. The CAA info is useless. Here in the UK, there's a simple diagram showing the regs in one image. We do have that, which is the CAP notices. documents, Moira. So, and there is actually a list of all. If you Google CAA, UK CAA unmanned cap list, it will bring up a list of all of the active caps, which is everything to do with unmanned aircraft. Legwork, latest news on CAA website regarding drones was in April. Yeah, I mean, again, they expect, because this will get out there, this will get released, and I'm just ahead of the curve. Within 25 minutes of me receiving this update, I've put the notice up that we'd then stream in an hour. So we're talking about news that has come to us within the last hour and a half, basically, which is again the kind of speed for this type of topic. I wanted this out there before the weekend for everybody. And Cobby is asking, I wonder how the DFT CAA can justify moving the goalposts so regularly when we can drive cars 40 plus years from public roads so long, which arguably could do more damage than any one C1 drone. Yeah, and I don't think you get a disagreement to that necessarily, and you won't get one from me, but I think you have to bear in mind that we are in a lot of flux. There's flux in terms of the technology moving forward. There's flux in terms of the type of user, the type of drone, and there's also flux in terms of the political environment, the fact that we are no longer part of the EU. Brexit happened. Even when Brexit was happening, we were going to stay in EASA, then we suddenly came out of EASA, etc. So we do have a situation where the regulator in particular with the CAA are dealing with an awful lot of changes, an awful lot going on. And I don't genuinely believe they want to annoy us. I don't believe they generally want to have that sort of adversarial relationship with the hobby in particular, or the commercial side. So yeah, it's a great point, but I think that there's a lot changing, whereas perhaps on the legislation as far as cars are concerned, the technology isn't leaping forward as much. You could look at Tesla and self-driving cars and that kind of technology as far as where those changes are sort of happen and then get pinned back and that type of thing as kind of similar in that particular analogy. And Gary Jonas Sundry saying, I agree, Sean, they might relax stuff back to be reasonable. Yeah, I think it could end up as a good thing. And Chris Ann, thank you. Great stream, going for a chicken tarka. Yes, it is Friday evening, people. We need to go and enjoy our Friday evenings. So if you just joined us, do watch back very, very quickly in the stream. We went straight into the statements that we've received from the CAA on this fairly heavyweight news for the UK here. So please go out and enjoy your drones this weekend. Go out and fly and enjoy the weather. I was about to say the remaining good weather, but those of you in Australia are probably having fantastic weather at the moment. But there we go with your summer coming in. But thank you very much for joining us here on Geeksvana Live. I will keep you informed on all of this. You're all asking, where can we find this information out? Where will the CAA post this, etc. I will ensure that every single piece of information we get will come to you in the simplest format, in the quickest amount of time, so that you can make your decisions. And I wanted to get this one out quickly to stop people that are purchasing those £1,500 DJI drones that are hoping to be using C1 on an ongoing basis. If you're buying it now and you're happy with it being a legacy, it's a great drone. It's got a fantastic camera, fantastic. But just bear in mind, it will no longer have that C1 capability after the end of this year, basically. So again, thank you very much for joining us on Geeksvana Live. I really appreciate it. Have a fantastic weekend. Keep an eye out in the community tab. Keep an eye out on the website, on the channel, on the website, on the channel, because we do have a very, very, very important live stream coming on Monday evening, which I have put an awful lot of work into, and is a really, it's a big one. It's a really important topic, and it's one that we've got to get right. Thanks, everyone. See you next time. Bye-bye.